The Irrational Confidence Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it was week number 3. We're recapping all of the excitement, all of the fun games, the blowouts, the close matchups, the rivalry games. The man who was the biggest Glory Gaynor fan last night at 11:30, reenacting the scene from The Replacements. My co-host, Fresh, how you doing?
Saturday was a spectrum of emotions, I would say, across the college football landscape. Things aren't very good in Gainesville or Tallahassee, and the Dogs got a serious scare up in Lexington, Kentucky. But in the end, survive and advance and get a W at the end of the day is all that matters. And we are on to week number 4. We still got to do a recap of week 3, but it was eventful to say the least.
Folks, if you aren't aware of what we're referencing here too, is make sure you check out the movie Replacement. Fresh was dancing to I Will Survive till about 2:30 in the morning last night. I could hear him all the way across town. Looked like the jail scene in there.
It was wow.
Fresh has got those dance moves too down like that. It's just that lean and back forth with it. All right.
Very limited dance moves. Limited dance moves.
Hey, before we get going into recapping this week's games, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. We are into the college football season. We will have a new episode every single week breaking down the marquee games of the week. So don't miss out on the action. Hit that subscribe button. Doesn't do anything. We are less than 100 subscribers away from 2,000. So we appreciate each and every one of you. Fresh, with that being said, let's get into it. What was your game of the week?
Game of the week, sometimes game day shows up and the game's usually a bomb, like it's a dud. But in this case, LSU, South Carolina delivered. The Gamecock fans showed up early. Carolina's football team showed up early. At 17-0. LSU looked like a dumpster fire. Brian Kelly looked like that team was falling apart. And then somehow, some way, that team put together some drives, got back in the ball game. Sellers that bust up another big old run. Raheem Rocket Saders has a couple big runs there. LSU just keeps bouncing back. There was chaos. There were some very suspect, controversial officiating. Almost got overtime. I think it brought everything for a noon window, especially when the Alabama-Wisconsin game was a dud. Everyone's watching this thing just going down to the wire. You never apologize for a win. LSU survived. They didn't look great, but Brian Kelly somehow got that team to win. And it was just it was an intense, emotional affair for everyone involved, everyone across the country watching that game. It was pretty spectacular.
Fresh, my game of the week, I could have gone to multiple different places. That TCU-UCF game with UCF come back in the fourth quarter, that was a great game. You take a look at the backyard brawl with the late drive. I don't know still how the Pitt quarterback stays up with and on that fourth quarter late drive to get the game-winning touchdown. But I'm going to go to another rivalry game, the one that I was locked in on, and I kept texting you about, Fresh, the Apple Cup. One of the best Final 4 minutes that I have ever seen. A wave of emotion. You kind of thought okay, Washington's going to pull this out late in the game. They have an interception deep in territory and then winds up getting overturned because the guy didn't control the ball. It was a bang play right there. Washington State pulling off the upset. We talked a little bit about this with Oregon State. We thought Oregon State was going to be the team that kind of had been galvanized by being left out. And sure enough, were we dead wrong on that one? It was actually Washington State that had been galvanized about being left out of the Big Ten. So my game of the week is definitely going to the Apple Cup.
Apple Cup was good, and obviously, folks, that was one of our Brownwater bets on top of it, so that's why we really tuned in even more. But go back to the Brockyard Brawl. Pitt, 2 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes. 2 touchdown drives for the team, that Pitt offense. Neil Brown, 2 big games your first 3. You no-showed for Penn State. Your team couldn't get off the field and get a stop in the backyard brawl. That was last year a one-year wonder because you're on the hot seat going into last season. I think that's getting the turn back up a little bit right there in Morgantown. And now you're 1-2, and your 2 biggest games to start the year off, you drop both of them. So, but big on Pat Narduzzi, Cade Bell's offense, Eli Holstein, that entire Pitt Panther squad. That was a great W to keep Pelham in ACC play.
Right. Absolutely. Great job out of Pitt, man. We didn't expect that. Good job out of
No,
them. Who's your offensive player of the week? I have two, but
I mean, Jalen Milro put up a
yep.
game, 5 touchdowns, going on the road. They kind of looked a little bit lethargic in the first drive, but then they just got it going. Per Cole Kublik from ESPN SEC Network, the first FBS player with 3 straight games to have multiple passing touchdowns and multiple rushing touchdowns since Jordan Lynch and Johnny Football in 2012, 12 years ago. He had 5 touchdowns on the day, 3 throwing, 2 rushing, looked in form. It makes you kind of wonder, that USF game, was that just them not wanting to show up? They kind of just waited out, and the team turned it on for the trip up there in Madtown. They got 2 weeks now before the Dogs come to Tuscaloosa. What kind of Jalen Milro effort and Crimson Tide effort will we get? But he definitely put up some points and led the offense on Saturday.
Yeah, Milro was my runner-up to it. I was kind of waiting to see who you were going to pick. I had 2, I told you. I'm going to go down to the U and Cam Ward. He did this in less than 3 full quarters, ladies and gentlemen. 19 for 28, 346, 5 touchdowns. I know they're playing Ball State. I get that. Understand all of that part. But Cam Ward is showing that he was everything and anything advertised in that transfer portal. Miami's 3-0, man. 2-0 in ACC play. They're looking like a force.
Well, you kind of look at Cam Ward was the prize for quarterbacks in the transfer portal. I think Florida State was in on him. Probably like a bunch of other schools. You see what Florida State product on the field right now is DJU. He won't get drafted in the Canadian Football League at this point. I mean, I'm sorry, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But if Cam Ward was at Florida State, would they be a different story? Probably. Right. Even with the less talented wide receiver, I think he still made them better than what they currently are. He right now is putting on a show at Miami. If the ACC, NC State didn't look too good. Virginia Tech pulled away late from Old Dominion. Boston College, they played strong versus Missouri. They're still in contention, but still, it's pretty wide open. And that actually puts more pressure on the Hurricanes and Cam Ward. It's yours to lose. And that's actually now expectations for the Hurricanes. Can you live up to them?
Yeah. I know it was a 62-0 blow up to Ball State, but I was glad to see Christian Aberney for Ball State, the tight end. He follows the show, so glad to see him get some love in that game. And his dad always reaches out to us as well. So good job out of him getting a catch in that game, playing out there. So, Fresh, Defensive Player of the Week, who you got?
Well, there's one team that got beat by Northern Illinois last week, and they showed up and decided to reverse the situation this past week at Purdue. But defensive end and edge rusher for Notre Dame, Babacar Traore, hope I pronounced that correctly. 2 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and a pick 6. You're wondering, how did the edge rusher defensive end get a pick 6? He dropped into the flat in coverage, got the ball, and took it right to the house and looked like a linebacker. He had some speed, but big play by him. That really kind of put the final nail in the coffin. Right before halftime, locked it down, sealed the game for Notre Dame. But you couldn't get a sack and a pick 6 as a defensive lineman or edge rusher. It's a pretty solid day.
There wasn't a whole lot of defense in the game that I picked, but this guy kind of showed out when necessary there. That LSU South Carolina game had very little defense. What else is new? But Brady Swinson for the LSU Tigers, 6 tackles, 3 sacks on the day, also forced a fumble. So I gave him my Defensive Player of the Week, even though team defense-wise, not a lot going on.
Oh, there's a lot of missed tackles across the college football spectrum yesterday. No matter what game you're watching. Maybe it's the first couple of weeks of seeing the adrenaline kind of had them there, and you had that lull after the third game. Dogs weren't tackling real well. Tigers and Gamecocks weren't tackling real well. Nobody's tackling for Florida. Nobody's tackling for Florida State. There's some terrible tackling by Mississippi State. How did you lose this league, by the way? Outhaul 41-17. Not much tackling from Oregon State. There's pretty lethargic defensive efforts across the spectrum of college football this past week.
Yeah, very much so there. And listen, don't be hating on the Rockets. We love the Rockets here, Fresh. The Toledo Rockets.
I'm just saying, like, is this the fourth time? Is this the fourth time this season?
Boat raced.
Is this the 4th time we've seen a team get paid $1 million plus and pull off the upset? Because they got paid. Mississippi State paid Toledo 1.2 to come down to Stark Vegas, and the Toledo Rockets, it was an air raid. Last.
Gotta love the action football, man. I mean, it is
funny. I think it's fact. I think Toledo has more wins against the SEC than Ohio State does in the past 25 years, 30 years. That's saying something. You gotta watch out for the MAC.
You gotta watch out for the MAC on that one. I don't know. We'll have to fact check that one. But
one other thing that makes me just had me irritated was on Friday night. Kansas UNLV. The ball game is yours, Jayhawks. The quarterback fumbles the football, and I swear everyone on the Kansas travel roster touched the ball, and they still didn't recover the fumble. And UNLV advanced 12 yards, and get the drive going, and wins the ball game. Just jump on the football, folks. Stop trying to scoop and score. Just jump on the football.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. With that level of frustration, who is your dud of the week? I have one, I guess. I guess it's one.
Well, I mean, I've kind of already listed out a few, but I'm going to go with Florida State. You coming off a bye week. You're already hearing all the chatter. It's Mike Norvell's past team coming in. It's not a sleeping AAC team. Memphis is in contention for the title, and you just stink it up. FSU has started 0-3 three times in their existence. The first time was in 1975, Bobby Bowden's first season in Tallahassee. The other two, 2021 and 2024, both under Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell, you are the problem. Jordan Travis saved your butt in 2022 and 23. You 2020, you stunk it up. 21, you stunk it up, and you're picking it up now. Maybe you need to start putting it yourself. You are the problem. Where's like Maury? Is it the Maury? You're not the father, or you're the father? In this case, Maury has come in like you are the problem, Mike Norvell. You spent all this time going through the transfer portal trying to pick up players to build a roster. You use the transfer portal to supplement your players and build a core that exists. We've seen on signing day the past 5 years, you come in the week before signing day, we have great class lined up, and then 4, 5, 6 guys all drop the week before. You have nothing left from an elite perspective, and you try to plug and play and fill the roster with transfers. This is what happens when you have guys who do not believe, and they're there on 1-year rentals. You have ruined the football program there. You had a 2-year blip, and I'm not going to even say, 22, you actually kind of got lucky. You beat a horrible LSU team. You survived. You went to the Cheez-It Bowl. Almost lost to Oklahoma. You built all that momentum coming in last year. And really, it's all because of Jordan Travis. You still, 2-11, 2-12 now without Jordan Travis at Florida State at your time? You cannot have your entire career built around one guy and then go to the transfer portal and keep refilling. This is a culture problem. This is a Mike Norvell problem. Florida State, look, your fans, you chirped all off season. Maybe this is kind of some real reality being hit, but it's all on Mike Norvell. He has ruined this entire football program, and he paid a lot of money, and I don't think you guys can pay that buyout. That's my job of the week. Mike Norvell, you've got to be better. You've got to really look inside and try to figure something out.
I just wrote Florida in my thing because my dud of the week is Florida State and the University of Florida, the Gators. Those two teams, you're starting out the year 1-5 combined between the two of you. On top of that, you've had ugly loss after ugly loss here. Texas A&M's offense looked like a JV offense against Notre Dame, and they just looked like you're playing the all-star team from an all-Madden program, and you just ran up the score against the Gators. Maybe the odds makers were really right in saying take the under in that the 5.5 over-under win total for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. The interesting thing, and I would love to know if this is possible, so if you know the answer to this question, has there ever been a time where Florida and Florida State both changed their head coach in the same football season? Because I really think that both of those coaches need to be fired probably before the season's out. I think that they're going to lose the team and possibly lose a lot more than that because you're looking at setting programs back. The track that they're on, we're talking about the abyss for these programs. We're talking about that deep, dark room that's going to take you years, and I'm talking over a decade to crawl out of. You don't have the type of money. You're not at a level of Texas where Texas eventually, they were messing up with the head coach thing, but they have the richest athletic program in the country. You're not a team that has consistently won year after year after year that can say, yeah, we had a bad year. You don't have a great head coach sitting in the NFL who's going to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save my alma mater. No, you're in a rock and a hard place, man, right now, and it is bad. I feel terrible for any FSU or UF fans right now just because you expect so much more out of your fans or your teams, and the fan base is not getting what they've asked for. I don't know. I just think that this is ridiculous.
And you bring up a great point. So in the 80s, in the 90s, recruiting was the coaches got in the car, and it was very local. A lot of kids, for the most part, were in state.
Right.
So Florida State, Miami, especially Miami, you've all heard about how Irrational Confidence were locking down South Florida. You can recruit from a plethora of talent in the state, and very rarely were people coming in and plucking players. As the 90s sort of moved on, late 90s, more TV started getting put out there. You start seeing some recruiting start picking up, and some guys from Florida going to, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. But for the most part, Florida State, Miami had to pick of the litter. Now that's changed. Florida State, Miami, that used to be all. I'm going to Florida. I grew up in Florida my entire life. I'm going to Florida State. I see Bobby Bowden. I'm seeing, Steve Spurrier lighting up. No more. We got max schools coming down into Florida and taking 3-star kids who will be going to bigger schools and becoming players. We got kids from all over the country. Schools from all over the country coming into Florida and taking the players, which that used to be your own back door, and now you're getting completely rated. For the most part, they aren't even looking at Florida State or Miami anymore. They're kind of like, okay, it's a fallback if anything else fails. Because facilities, in some cases, maybe a little behind, especially at Florida State, they're still behind. They're down at the boosters. Miami does not have a home field advantage atmosphere since they left the old Orange Bowl. Florida, I think the fan base was so enthralled with Steve Spurrier and what he did, because before he arrived, that football program outside of the Charlie Pellier, where they're doing some serious violations, they were nothing to shake a stick at. And most old Florida fans know. The people who grew up in the 90s watching them throw around, right now they expect 50 points a game. So when Urban came back, they were loving Urban because Urban won dominant and he put up tons of points. Ever since then, they haven't had that same vibe. If they score 24 points in a game to win, people are mad because it's not the Spurrier Urban type. They're not getting those kind of players anymore, folks. They're not getting those kind of dominant wins. You are just in the program. And that's going to really have to be a reality strike. Florida State, you guys dominate for so long. The reason why the ACC hardcore schools don't like you is because all those years in the 90s and early 2000s where you were putting up 60 points on people and winning, going away, and undefeated records, this is their payback, and they do not feel sorry for you at all. You've got to recharge and find yourself to move forward. And one last thing before I move on. College football is going on for a long, long time. Florida State is the first preseason AP top 10 team to ever start 0-3 with 3 straight losses to unranked teams. In history, folks, this is a historically bad start for Florida State. And it also shows preseason polls don't mean a dang thing.
Right. AP doesn't mean a dang thing. I hate that. Again, AP is, we've talked many times before, Fresh, like, when you get to the committee's rankings, like, we put a lot of water into those because those people that's their whole job. They're paid to listen. I will sign up to be a committee member and I will watch every single game multiple times. Fresh and I would do that probably for half the cost of what they're paying the committee members. But
no doubt.
But the AP people that have an AP vote, and if you want to give us an AP vote, Fresh and I will again probably watch more. Yeah, we'll probably watch more football than most AP voters do, though. They just look at who wins and they don't take and watch any of these games here. Fresh, again, I want to just kind of double back to something that you made. Take a look at the 25 recruiting class, the recruiting class that is about ready to come up here. If you take a look at the top 40 kids, only 6 of them out of the state of Florida are going to either FSU or UF. Now, 6 more kids are going to the Hurricanes, but all of these schools are exactly what you're saying. Out of the top 40 kids, all of these are 4 stars or better. Schools are coming in and just plucking them out. Again, and it could be NIL deal. But again, if you're leveling off, if your NIL is the same, again, because I don't think that there would be a drastic difference of capability for if I'm the University of Florida and I have a good NIL collective group going. us versus LSU shouldn't be like a huge difference. It shouldn't be like, oh, LSU can pay me like, I don't know, $200,000 more than here. And again, I'm closer to home. I'm closer to my family. It really is saying that there's a cultural difference at these programs that these kids are seeing, because you're talking about red apples and green apples in that recruiting scenario. The same thing is going to happen if like Ohio State or LSU or Oregon or Michigan, Alabama comes in. You're talking the red apples versus green apples. You're not talking apples to pomegranates. You're not talking apples to cucumber melons. You're not talking any of that stuff. This is ridiculous to see how far these two programs have fallen. And again, I legitimately think it will take a minimum of 5 years, and you got to make a full 5-year commitment for Florida. For FSU, it's even worse, because what we've talked about many times, Florida, you brought this up, and I always think this is a great point. FSU is not the same age of a university like a lot of these other colleges throughout the country. FSU has what we would probably refer to as young money. They don't have the old time, every member of my family for 5 generations has gone through their doors, and we were multimillionaires and the whole family always donates to the university. They don't have that type of money. Places like, and it's weird, like a place like SMU probably has more money than Florida State right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a school like FSU, I would say, at least, if they don't do something fast, they got to do something fast. You're looking at 8 years minimum to pull yourself out of this type of hole. And we could be starting to see the death of a true program.
Now, I'll bring up one thing, because there's this huge obsession with Lane Kiffin to Florida. Right now, you're at Ole Miss, and NIL, you're getting players. Obviously, they went out there and got some guys in the portal. There's no divisions anymore, so it's not like he's trying to escape the SEC West and get an easier ticket to the title game.
Right.
Do you go to Florida? So now, for Lane Kiffin, you are in the shadows of Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer the rest of your career, and you're being held to that standard as opposed to being the Lane train in Oxford. It doesn't make much sense. And honestly, I mean, it's kind of it's probably not a good, situation, but his ex-wife is a Gator alum and his family are Gator alum. Do you want to go? I know they don't have the greatest relationship, but do you want to go make your ex-wives and her family's alma mater better by coaching there? Like, if it's not, it wasn't a pleasant divorce and everything that we've probably seen out in the public. So that also kind of plays like, do I really want to go save her school? No. I know it's a kind of a petty item there, but there's things that you got to factor in someone's mind where he's the man in Ole Miss. This is where, again, Florida fans not being realistic. Oh, we can go get Lane Kiffin. There's no reason for Lane to leave. He's going to the playoff right now. Why go to Florida and get worse?
Yeah.
Why go to Florida and get worse?
All right. Here's my answer. If UF is calling Lane Kiffin and I'm Lane Kiffin's agent, no, hell no. I'm not leaving Ole Miss. Ole Miss has backed up that truck. They've got the money.
They've done it for him. They've made their contributions for him.
There's nothing you're offering me.
No, he can get players there. We've already seen he just got the best defensive lineman from Florida to go to Ole Miss. He got the best defensive lineman from A&M and one of the best defensive linemen in the country to transfer to Ole Miss. He set up a culture pretty good there in Oxford.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on this topic right here, Fresh. Maybe this might be something we do in the off season. All right, Fresh.
I should get a little fired up about it.
I know. Well, I'm getting a reaction from us.
Yeah, I think before we move on to our top 15, I will address the Dogs, Team Lexington. If you've watched any kind of history, you know it's not. They don't blow them out there. This is the fourth in the last 5 trips where they have won by 10 points or less, I believe. Third straight time they score less than 17 points in Lexington. They do not go there and play well. Kentucky somehow just rises up and gets physical, and they punch him in the mouth. But it's worrisome with Tate Ratledge at right guard getting hurt, how that's going to impact the offensive line. A lot of injuries on the defensive line.
That injury late.
Ingram Dawkins getting hurt. already down 3 defensive linemen going into the game. It's God willing, it's a perfect time for a bye week, but your defensive line's thin, your offensive line's got to get together. Offense looked out of sync. Tackling was very suspect. Maybe they were looking ahead, maybe they weren't focused, but I'll tell you right now, I don't want to be one of those players the next 2 weeks of practice because Kirby's going to have those boys fired up and hitting. We're going to know a lot about this program and the core of it when they walk into Tuscaloosa because you're coming off a very rough effort. You haven't won in Tuscaloosa since 2007. Alabama has beaten Georgia, and every time they've matched up south of the Mason-Dixon line since 2007. That win up in Indianapolis, that's a different story. There's a lot hanging in the balance here for Kirby. This program it's a culture thing now. Can they get past the Alabama hump? Can they grow and they can mature in 2 weeks? It's going to be a lot to see when we get to that game in a couple weeks there in Tuscaloosa.
Well, I'll say this about Georgia before we go on to our top 15. I dropped them. Because there are some things that I saw, and I think Kirby Smart's a fairly smart coach. You said, you feel bad for the players that get them hitting over the next couple weeks with the bye coming in here. I'd actually say the opposite here, Fresh. I would say the opposite, especially this first week leading into the bye. That's the last thing I need. I need my players I would focus on technique and healing right now. I would focus on scheme, positioning, let's break down film. Let's watch what we're doing. Now, again, I don't want to bring the physicality because if you bring the physicality and you go ones-on-ones at Georgia, you're talking about going up against some of the best players in the entire country. And there's, again, another opportunity for injuries not to heal as quickly as you need that. I would really say, especially this first week, rest. Next week, if you want to get a little physical and you want to hit a little bit, yeah, go right ahead on that part. But going into that Alabama game, I really think that they need to be as healthy as humanly possible. But let's jump into it fresh. Top 15, who you got?
Texas number one.
Yep.
Texas number one. They've looked dominant in all 3 of their games so far this year.
Yep.
I got Georgia at 2. I got Ohio State at 3. Tennessee at 4. The others have Tennessee at 4 because NC State looked like trash versus Louisiana Tech. So they put up tons of points. And I'm also Tennessee. Josh, why did you onside kick in the first quarter up 30-0? Seriously, that karma's going to come back and get you at some point down the road. That was very, very ugly. USC at 5, Ole Miss at 6, Oregon 7. They made a big jump up with a big dominant win that finally showed up in that game. Miami 8, Kansas State, very impressive domination over Arizona at number 9. Alabama at 10, Missouri 11, Utah without Cam Rising, they didn't look too good. So it kind of worries me if Cam Rising, if he's fully healthy, how that's going to be impacting this football team. Penn State at 13, Louisville 14, Oklahoma State at 15, Nebraska right there at 16. You're on the cusp. I think I've seen a lot right now from Raiola and the way Matt Rhule has got that program coming up. They're chugging in the right direction. Cornhuskers are actually a viable football team now, folks.
Yeah. We have a little bit the same, but we have some drastically different things because, again, I'm going off of what my eyes are telling me here. Fresh, I'm with you. Texas, number 1. Best team in the country right now through 3 games. Again, let's see how they are a month from now, but everything I've seen out of Texas has just been absolutely dominating. And, again, they have marquee wins and stuff like that. I have Ohio State still number 2. They're off this week. Again, I hate this early bye, especially them and Penn State. I struggled with some of the teams that are on a bye. Again, a team like Georgia who didn't look very good against Kentucky. I know it's a tough place for them to play, but there's a lot of questions that I think came up that can be fixed early in the season. I have Alabama at number 3. I've jumped them all the way up. I thought that win up in Wisconsin, I thought if that's the Alabama team, we're going to get the rest of the year. If that was like them and they kind of sandbagged it early on in the season, that's the Alabama team we're going to get the rest of the year. That Alabama team is going to be extremely tough no matter who they play. I got Georgia in at 4. Miami, they just, again, like I said with Texas, Miami has been absolutely dominant in their 3 wins this year. I'm putting Miami at number 5. I got Oregon at 6. I bumped Oregon up a little bit as well because of how dominant they look. We've been asking for us to see that from them. and Dan Lanning. I'm glad to see that they wound up really like finally smacking somebody in the mouth. Maybe it took a rivalry game to get there. Ole Miss is number 6 or I have Ole Miss at 7. I'm sorry there. Ole Miss at 7 for me because Ole Miss, I thought about actually moving them higher, but the thing that bothered me is sometimes that offense stalling out. And with
they didn't look as. I was kind of hoping for more offense in that Wake Forest game. 40-6. I mean, look, they covered the game. They covered the first half. I won money. I'm okay with it, but I expected a lot more of a high voltage offense that we're used to.
Right. I got Tennessee sitting at number 8 for me. I'm waiting for them to have a marquee. The thing that's missing for me for Tennessee is a marquee win. I need a big-time marquee win. So like you said, NC State didn't look the greatest, so I'm not really considering that a huge marquee win yet. And again, I'm a Josh Heupel apologist, so I always am looking for an excuse to put Tennessee higher. This is where I struggled here. Penn State on a bye this week. I have them at number 9, and it just really, really struggled for me about what to do with the Nittany Lions. They haven't lost yet. They haven't had any problems. I got same thing with USC. USC has looked amazing in their first couple of games, and I have them at number 10. Utah is my 11 seed. Oklahoma State is sitting there at number 12. All they've done is win so far, so I like Oklahoma State. I have Missouri at 13. And again, I was critical about Missouri, and I think we were critical about Missouri, and maybe rightfully so. They really did struggle with the physicality of BC, even though that they were the more talented football team. I think Missouri is going to just benefit from a weak schedule and not really play anybody that's going to smack them around. I would love to see them get a physical team there. K-State, big win, though. I got them 14, and I did the same thing with you as you, Fresh. My number 15 team, I put the Nebraska Cornhuskers at 15. They're impressive. I got them at 15 over Oklahoma, LSU, and Notre Dame. That rounds out my last little bit there, but
Missouri, that game, they're going to go play. They're going to play at the Tide. I think late October. Actually, I think I've been in Vegas that week. They're going to probably survive until that point, and then we're going to find out what drink in those Tigers are all about.
They got A&M in 2 weeks. First weekend of October.
A&M will be physical with them. I don't think A&M has the offense to keep up. So that's
right.
To your physicality point, that is going to be an interesting test. If they can pass that high scoring offense, can they keep up with another team? Can they win the trenches? It's going to be that if they don't sharpen up, that easy road of their schedule will get tougher just because of just the regression period from the Tigers themselves.
Right. So, Fresh, I don't know. I was really struggling actually when I was working on my top 15. Again, I still feel that the top 5, maybe 6 teams we're starting to see that bit of separation at the top. That again, not saying that these teams are maybe head and shoulders better, but again, there's a difference between the Texas, the Ohio State, the Georgia. I'll give Bama the nod to get in there. Again, I need to see more, but that was a very, very impressive win by them at Wisconsin.
So to the other side, Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. Oof.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of. I know we haven't. I expected more. This point in year 2, this was supposed to be the game that you have a year to get the Badgers ready to play Alabama, and they've gotten worse. That offense, even Van Dyke getting hurt. That offense, even with him in for the previous 2 weeks before this, I was like, okay, it's South Dakota and Western Michigan, and you've done nothing.
We thought you were holding back.
You got to dig deep, Luke Fickell, because right now that the time at Cincinnati, those 2 years, going to the New Year's Six bowls and the playoff, that's looking a lot farther in the distant, rearview mirror. You won in a smaller league. You haven't even got Big Ten play yet in year 2, and I already have some serious warning signs that this is not the fit for you, and maybe you are a group of 5 head coach, and you just got lucky one great year with Cincinnati.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Fresh. Week 3 is in the books. I went 2-1 in my brown water bets. How'd you do?
2-1. The Apple Cup let us down both cases.
Oh no! Apple Cup. We missed the over on that.
Yeah, we both have the over. Yeah.
I thought there'd be more points in that one, but it's still a great game there. Hey, folks, before you head on out of here, if you made it this far, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. Spinnable, the Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of Spinnable Sports, so make sure you check out spinnablesports.com. Yes, that is spinnablesports.com. Our special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. Make sure you're following us on social medias. Make sure you're following us on X. Interact with us. Engage with us. Leave us comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. Hey, we're going to drop a Week 4 poll, so make sure you're interacting with that. Help pick one of the games that we're previewing coming up. We got a big week number 5 on the horizon. Can't wait for that. And that's it. That's all I got here, Fresh.
All right, keep checking away, folks. Cherish every college football Saturday because we've already been through 3.5 with week 0. Before we know it, we're moving on. So enjoy every game. Stay in tune with us. Social medias, hit spinnablesports.com. Subscribe to our YouTube page. Spread the word. And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.